So the third overall pick from the 2016 NHL draft, and that's an important piece of information. We'll get into that shortly. Of the Columbus Blue Jackets, center Pierre-Luc Dubois apparently wants to come to Montreal. I guess we are at the top of his list in terms of trade destinations. And it's really interesting to hear the rumors about what's floating around in terms of the ask that Columbus wants in return for a player like that. We're hearing Nick Suzuki plus. So Nick Suzuki and more on top of that. Montreal hasn't had a center or a player in general with the skill that Nick Suzuki has in a long, long time. You add on to that he's got the 200-foot game and the hockey sense to go along with it. Just doesn't seem like a player to me that Marc Bergevin's going to want to give up. And me personally, I'd be pretty upset if we give up this guy. Now that said, of course Columbus has to ask for an astronomical price if you are trading a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois, a very special player, 6'3", 220, power forward center. Great start to his career so far. 61 points a couple years ago, and then he was on pace for that again last season at such a young age. No weaknesses on the kid, so they're going to ask for a huge haul, and eventually they will get it. But Jarmo Kekalainen, GM of the Columbus Blue Jackets, isn't necessarily negotiating from a position of strength here. He has an asset that clearly wants out, and he has to get a deal done. I mean, of course, he'll be under team control as a restricted free agent even when his new contract ends, but it still could be a difficult trade to make, especially when you're dealing with a team like the Montreal Canadiens and Marc Bergevin, who have a ton of young assets. So really what it comes down to is, what is Marc Bergevin willing to give up? And will that be enough for Jarmo Kekalainen to accept? Now, to me, I don't think Suzuki can be the main centerpiece in this trade. To make it work, I don't think it's going to be Phil Deneau, because the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to want a younger asset as the main piece in this trade. So you got to think it'd be Kotkaniemi, and Columbus Blue Jackets, they'd be looking for a center in return. Kotkaniemi, 2018, third overall pick. Very similar player, power forward center. He might be a little bit smaller, just a tiny bit, but he will fill out. They're very similar players, drafted at the same position, a couple years apart. Jesperi Kotkaniemi started his NHL career very young, where Pierre-Luc Dubois was sent back to the Q, played a year, then came into the NHL at 19 or 20. Kotkaniemi's still an extremely young player as an NHLer. And the thing is, though, it wouldn't be straight up Kotkaniemi for Pierre-Luc Dubois. PLD is at least a couple years ahead in terms of his development curve in terms of Kotkaniemi when we're comparing the two. So yes, the Habs would have to add onto Kotkaniemi, and that it actually makes sense there. At this point, it's blatantly obvious Nick Suzuki is going to be a top center in this league for a very long time. So to swap PLD for him, it's basically a wash. I just don't see how that makes sense for the Montreal Canadiens. Whereas Kotkaniemi, it's not a sure thing yet, but just about. Now, we would have to add on to that, but where they were drafted at like pretty much the exact same spot, 2 years apart, and Kotkaniemi's had an impressive start to his young career so far, outside of his bit of a sophomore slump there. He's a great asset. Plus, there's a Finnish connection with the GM, Kekalainen, a Finn himself. Now, what we'd have to add on top of that might have to be Caulfield, but it could just be a first-round pick as well as another high-level prospect. The other thing is, I'm not sure Marc Bergevin wants to really mess with this team chemistry right now. He had a very busy offseason. He's labeled this team a win-now team. So to make this trade right now just doesn't seem to make sense for me. Does he really want to throw off what he's put together for this season? If anything, I would see this being done after this kind of crazy, makeshift NHL season. There's also the cap implications for the Montreal Canadiens that have to be taken into consideration here. If we're trading away Kotkaniemi and prospects, then we're not going to have cap space to hold on to Pierre-Luc Dubois. So, yeah, right at the moment, I don't necessarily see a match, even though it probably is very tempting for Marc Bergevin to go after Pierre-Luc Dubois, where he's a francophone player. But all that said, I feel comfort knowing that I can trust Marc Bergevin with making the right decision for this franchise. We've seen in his 8 or 9 year tenure with the Habs that he has a fantastic trade record, and I know he's going to make the right decision for the Montreal Canadiens moving forward. Let me know in the comments how you think this is going to play out. Should we just stick with our center depth right now, which looks fairly good, not just in the present, but for the future as well? Or should we, throw the kitchen sink at Pierre-Luc Dubois? Would love to hear what you guys think, so get at me down in the comments. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and of course, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Scotian Canadian. Go Habs, go baby! Heads up, guys, my Scotian Canadian content is now on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. So if you want to listen to me go on and on about the Habs in your drive to work or while you're shoveling snow or cleaning the house, whatever you do when you're listening to pods, if you want to have me in your ear for some reason, check me out. Just search up Scotian Canadian. It's there for you. Cheers, guys.